We're just pouring it in, and it bakes for about an hour at 325. I made mine, last week. Did we get everything? Just about. And froze it. I kept it right in the pan, covered it with heavy duty foil, and stuck it in the freezer. And it reheats beautifully, and it tastes really good. Cold for breakfast. I can attest to that. And I mean, you know, eggs and fruit, a little bit of noodles for breakfast. Works. Yeah, and that's it. I have a lot of kugel recipes. This is one that my mom actually came across because I didn't grow up keeping kosher. But when I was married, we kept kosher for quite a while. And she was always looking out for recipes for me. So this was one that actually became a favorite, even with my extended family as well, because, you know, a good Jewish mother shares all of her recipes with everybody. So she shared it with me and my sisters, and it's ready to go in the oven. And when it comes out, I have a little one.
Yay, show us the one that's not cooked yet.
Yeah, I will. And I'll probably sprinkle some cinnamon on, and sometimes cinnamon sugar, or just, so that's it. Easy enough. And I'll sprinkle it with cinnamon before I pop it in the oven. And this is the finished one. Nice and crispy on the top. Family usually picks off the crispy noodles in the corners. Yep. So that's it. And you can really adjust it to, if you prefer, let's say, dried cherries, you can do that. I've done it. Or dried cranberries. But for me, for Rosh Hashanah, I think apples and honey and raisins is the way to go. That's it. It's easy.
And you want to tell everyone bye-bye?
Bye-bye.
Can you say Shana Tova?
Don't leave just yet. Don't leave just
Oh, we won't. We won't.
So
We won't.
we're doing really well on time. So does anybody want to ask Leanne a question about the recipe?
Did you peel the apples before you put them in?
Nope. You can if you want to, but one of my new terms for cooking when I cook is rustic. So if I don't feel like peeling something, it's a rustic apple raisin kugel for Rosh Hashanah. And you know, the skin is fine, it cooks up. I tend not to use Granny Smith. I just had it, so I used it up. So sometimes those skins are a little bit sour, but there's, with the brown sugar and the honey and the raisins, it's sweet, and I don't even bother peeling. You can make it a little more presentable by slicing the apples really thin, but then I have found it's harder to slice.
After
Are the apples chunks, and how much? What's the quantity?
That was about 1.5 apples, and it was a good healthy cup of raisins. But if your family doesn't like raisins, don't put them in. If you love raisins, put in more.
And they're very delicious to snack on while you're eating.
Yes.
Do you use golden raisins or regular raisins?
So the ones I had were, I believe, from Trader Joe's, and it was a mix of large and small raisins, different colors. So they were red and golden, and you know, the black raisins. And because I didn't have quite enough, so I wasn't going to even say it, I had some currants, so I added that to top off the cup or so of raisins. So yeah, golden raisins are the softer ones, and they're really yummy that way. but these were nice, especially we like raisins, so the big ones made it really nice and juicy. My sous chef here is cleaning up for me.
See, I think
Stacking my bowls.
Linda has another question, and then we'll
Yeah,
move.
what was the quantity on honey? A quantity?
2 tablespoons.
Oh, thank you.
So not too much. It's a half a cup of brown sugar and 2 tablespoons of honey. And you don't even, if you don't like honey, don't put it in. It just seems
It's
like
pretty
apples.
subtle.
Yeah, it's very subtle. It just seems like, yikes, apples and honey make sense.
Super. Well, thank you so much, Leanne. That was wonderful. Thank
Welcome.
you, Addie. Thank you, Heidi.
Can you say thank you? Bye-bye. Can you say
Say
thank
thanks
you?
for watching.
We'll stick around. We're not going
Okay, good.
anywhere.
Thank you. All right, that was great. So next up, we have Mary Engel and Pat Schraeberg. Mary and Pat are both longtime Temple members. They started cooking together before their mutual retirement, and then they stepped it up after they both retired. They're very active in their community and responsible for the Temple Deli, the TAI on Rye, and the Jewish Food Festival. If that's not enough, they both currently serve on the Temple board, where Mary is the acting secretary and Pat is currently president. They are dear friends who keep getting each other involved in a variety of cooking events. So I'm going to hand it over to Mary and Pat. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear us?
Are we good?
Okay, great. We are making an old-fashioned apple cake. The recipe is from a Temple cookbook that the Sisterhood published in the early 80s. The recipe is from Anita Mersak, who was the Sisterhood president at the time. Pat's cookbook no longer has the cover on it. She's used it so much. I myself didn't even know this cookbook existed until I was cleaning out my mother-in-law's condo a few years ago and found it there, and it was like, who knew? So I haven't had a chance to make mine as well worn as hers. We've provided Gilson with a copy of the recipe. We've reordered it a little bit to make it a little bit more useful and added a few notes in there too. So it starts with a cup of oil. We have another computer going on over here. You might be able to see from that. Cup of oil, 2 cups of sugar, and a teaspoon of vanilla, which I will add while Pat gets the mixer ready. And you want to do that until everything is mixed together pretty well. Oh, I forgot the eggs. It'll never get mixed together without the eggs. Yeah. There. So you want to maybe just knock it up a notch. And the next thing you do is you add the dry ingredients, which is, let's see, 2 cups of flour. And is the baking powder already in there?
No, we're going to.
Okay, this particular cup contains baking powder, salt, cinnamon, and nutmeg. It calls for sifting all the dry ingredients, but we're just going to give it a little whisk. Older recipes often called for sifting because flour wasn't milled to a consistency, I guess. So you don't have to do that this much these days, unless the recipe calls for the sifted flour. Then you have to sift it first.
It was hard for Mary and I to do one cake. We normally do about 250. So we had to seriously cut down recipes. And how do you do it for just one?
Well, actually, we usually start with the recipe for one, and then we multiply it so we can make 250.
Our calculations are interesting.
So once that's mixed, then the last of it is apples, pecans, and raisins. Now, the apples are important. Pat didn't peel them. You can peel or not peel. The recipe I think I copied says peel, but you don't have to. Slice thin. I don't know if you can see how thin this is. And then we cut them into little chunks too. So they're going in there. Put those babies in, yeah. And then we have a cup of raisins, I think it is. Let me see. Yeah, a cup of golden raisins. the raisins and the pecans are optional. If you don't like raisins, I don't think you need to put the raisins in there. And if you have a nut allergy, don't bother with the pecans. Taking away these two ingredients doesn't really affect, I don't think, the chemistry of the baking. So I'm going to add that in there. And then we've got a cup of pecans chopped. Yep. And that was 3 cups of apples. And just FYI, we use Gala apples. We had this size, which is like a fist size. Pat said 3 of these made 3 cups of apples. When I did a test drive on this, I used a bigger Gala apple, and 2 apples provided me with enough apples for this. So if you got them even smaller, it might take 4, but this is just a nice medium-sized apple, I think.
Okay.
So that's all ready. Then we have our pan, which has already been greased. We use this Pam baking pan. It's a baking thing, and it's got a little flour in it already. And she's gonna pour it into the pan. Sorry, I'm kind of hogging all the topping.
No, I can't.
It's hard for me to bake without Pat insulting me, to tell you the truth.
Oh my goodness. Some people won't stay in the kitchen with us. And a few people are afraid.
So she's gonna spread that out nice and evenly in the pan. Can you just kind of tilt it and give everybody a look?
It looks pretty.
The red, actually, the test cake I made doesn't have the red in it, and I think the skins on the apple is gonna add a little, it's gonna make the cake look prettier. So the cake goes into a 350-degree oven. It bakes for 40 to 50 minutes. It took a little longer in my oven, and I don't know if it's because it's old or whatever. It just took a little longer. So, and I split the recipe into 2 8x8 pans, which you can do, because my husband and I needed to taste test to make sure it was worthy. That was one pan. And then we put the other pan in the freezer to make sure that it would freeze well. So that's why this is a finished cake, right? Like this. You can, I don't have the red in the apples. Do you want to cut it?
I do have a knife. I mean, that would be really nice.
Okay, we'll cut it.
All right.
And we'll eat in front of you.
Yeah.
Nah, 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 nah.
Did it freeze well?
We'll find out once we cut it and take a test.
Oh, this one was frozen.
But it looks good. I actually wrapped it within an inch of its life in
It
saran.
froze well.
Yes,
And
I know.
it does.
It does look like it froze well, and we haven't.
We did.
Have
Yeah,
we
we
made
did.
it for the food festival?
We did.
Yes,
And it did well.
If we made it for the food festival, we oftentimes bake those like a month in advance in smaller little pans to sell
Yeah.
individually.
And it did fine. Whoops. And it did just fine. So.
I did an apple cake for Rosh Hashanah, and I decided, have you ever like put a glaze on there? I ended up doing it always tells me to put powdered sugar on it, and then the powdered sugar just disappears. It doesn't matter how long I
It's wet, yeah, because this is a really moist cake.
Yeah.
So I think that would make the powdered sugar, get wet, and it just kind of goes away, and instead it looks like some sticky, icky gray stuff on top of your cake.
So I made a
When we make these cakes,
glaze. And I didn't know if maybe y'all ever put a glaze on that one.
well, when we make these cakes, for instance, for the food festival, we are always looking for something that's relatively easy and will freeze well, and all we have to do for the food festival is take it out of the freezer and let it thaw. And so that's it.
It's actually pretty sweet too. So I don't know if you'd want to really put a glaze on it. I don't know if you saw the other day.
I'll eat 6 feet away from you.
All right. I'm trying to stay 6 feet from the refrigerator too. This is, the Hadassah put out a challah apple. Did you try that one? We did try that the other day.
Well, was it good?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
it was
yeah.
amazing. The only thing that would have been better would be a bourbon kind of icing on the top. Yeah, that would.
You like bourbon in a lot of things.
I
I've
do
noticed.
actually. it's a staple around here.
So I have tasted part of this cake, and I have to say it has not lost any quality from freezing it. And if anything, it might taste a little moister even than it was before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a mix between a spice and kind of a spice cake with that extra kick of apples and raisins and nuts. So
And such a nice way to honor Anita.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, she did so many things at the temple. So she was a religious school teacher. And
Yeah, we were wondering before. This was Anita's recipe, but for all we know, like she may have had a card like Leanne did that was passed down from her mother or something, that it might have been a long time family recipe. We don't really know the origins of it. We just know that she contributed it to
Yeah.
Nice.
the cookbook.
Well, that was lovely. That looks really good. That's similar to the one that I do too. And they're just wonderful cakes. And you just, I know I was with my family over the Rosh Hashanah, and we averaged 2 pieces of cake a day, one for lunch.
Oh my.
one for
It does go down easy, that's for sure.
Yes.
It probably wouldn't be bad for breakfast either.
breakfast.
Coffee.
Coffee. Does anybody have any questions for Pat and Mary?
And think how pretty this would be with pomegranate.
Oh, nice.
Little stick a
Thrown
little
into the
pomegranate.
recipe? Yeah.
Mhm. I've done that before and it's really nice.
She's a more adventurous cook than I am. Oh, Linda Dechtenberg has a question.
Oh, great. Go ahead,
She
Linda.
needs unmute yourself. Can she not unmute herself?
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. On the added things, the powder, the baking powder, salt, cinnamon, nutmeg, you didn't give any quantities, and you just take those and add them into the mixing bowl.
Those went into the flour and you mixed them, we whisked them together. I think they're going to provide recipes for this because I did give them one, but if you want to know, it was a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of cinnamon, a teaspoon of nutmeg, and 3 teaspoons of baking powder, which is actually a tablespoon of baking powder.
Okay. And that went into the pot. Yeah. Oil, vanilla.
We will have recipes that we're sending out to everybody, but please feel free to ask any other questions you might have.
We don't know the answer, we'll make one up.
Well, I will add something to what Jeff was talking about, the tuna salad before. If anybody needs to make tuna in quantity, and you don't have access to a bag of it from Subway, the GFS in Hamburg sells tuna in 6 pounds, I think 66 ounces. So it must be I think it's 66 ounce cans. And and they have albacore, the white albacore. And what he did with the squeezing, that's what we always make tuna salad for the break the fast, which we're not having this year, obviously, for the congregational break the fast. And we do the same thing, squeeze it out and get it as dry as possible. And if you don't like onions or something another thing that was Rosarita Wormser's secret in tuna salad was horseradish.
Oh.
And she put some of that in there.
Yeah.
It adds a little zing, and for people who don't like onions, they always say, "Oh, what is that in there?" And they're always a little surprised, but it adds a little zip without dealing with the onion, which a lot of people don't like.
Well, I know Nancy has a question, but I also have a question in the chat, which was, can you repeat the name of the cookbook that you were talking about?
It's called A Taste of Tradition, Favorite Recipes Collected by Temple Adath Israel Sisterhood. Unless you know somebody who has one,
it's out of print.
There aren't any laying around. There's one at the temple in the kitchen that we use, but they're not, it's almost 40 years old.
Well, maybe y'all should think about a fundraiser where you reprint.
We are thinking about,
we're considering
that again. Yes.
Awesome.
Maybe in conjunction. We were thinking about doing it in conjunction with this year's food festival, but we all know what happened to this year's food festival.
Right.
And I forgot to say, Rich Ornstein, if you're watching, I want you to see Pat's apron. See, it's from the Cordon Bleu. So just so you know.
Yeah. Rich, by the way, is afraid of us. And he's mentioned that a number of times.
Yes, he is.
Yes. So anyway, and he's our vice president
at the temple.
Yes. The temple, yes. So but just so he knows,
he's the only man on the executive committee, and so he's kind of outnumbered.
Yeah, he has to request permission to talk.
Nancy, I think you had a question. Go ahead.
Not a question. I just wanted to thank Gilson and Kathy and Daniel for all of the work. I know you made it look very easy. It was a lot of work that went into it, and all the participants. This was great fun. There are 3 more episodes, so you might want to plug those. 2 weeks and then 4 weeks and 6 weeks. And this was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Oh.
Sure, I'll plug that, and then I think Linda might have another question. But the next episode they're each in 2 weeks, subsequent 2 weeks. But In the next episode, it's myself and Ricky Rosenberg. We're going to do Sabbath dishes. And Ricky's going to be making challah and showing a variety of different braiding techniques. And I'm going to be doing some Sephardic recipes. So I grew up in Montgomery, Alabama, and was part of a synagogue of all immigrants from the island of Rhodes. And so it was a small 60 family synagogue. And so I'm going to be sharing some of our Sabbath recipes, specifically fish recipes. So hopefully you can join us for that. And then the next one is going to be a wonderful episode on salads. And we've got an Israeli salad and a Moroccan beet salad and a couple of other salads. And then the final episode of this series is desserts. And so we've got an actual baker who's going to do a dairy Napoleon, which I don't know how many of us will ever make, but it sure will be fun to watch. Pat and Mary will probably make it, but I'm not real sure about the rest of it. But anyway, so I hope you'll be able to join. And again, we're recording each one of them. So if you can't make it on that date, sign up and you'll get a copy of the recording. And with that, Linda, did you have another question?
I was going to, but I'll just wait till I can get the recipe. It's okay.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, I want to thank, we weren't sure if we could do 4 people in a episode or if we needed to keep it to 3. I'm thinking we might be able to do 4, but we're just trying to test things out. So we're going to finish a little early tonight. But if anybody has anything to say, just please unmute yourself and have at it. Thank you to all the cooks, and I think it turned out great.
Thank you for doing all this.
Yes. It's
Yeah, thank you.
delightful.
Great to meet you all. I'm really looking forward to meeting more individuals in the community, the Jewish community, because I don't know many folks from the temple, so this is going to be great for me.
This was lovely. Thank you all.
We will get more emails. We will get more emails about the next ones.
Yes.
Okay.
I also have another temple cookbook that was put together. That's from 2001.
Yes. Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're overdue for another one.
Yeah.
And I bet you Anita's recipes in that one. I think it is. I've
I
got
don't
that
know.
one in there too. Yeah. All right.
And I'd like to thank everyone today, the Zimmerman crew and Jeff, and thank you, Pat and Mary. It was wonderful. I'm Ricky Rosenberg, and I see Pamela, my daughter, on the screen. She's the one who's taken my challah recipe to the next level. So when Gilson asked about different braiding techniques, it's Pamela who I consult. So she's going to be on helping us also next week. I'm really excited about that. I would say, I'd like to just say 2 things. One is I thought maybe we could do some testimonials about this event and put it on the Shabbat message for this coming Friday. So perhaps we can get a bigger crowd even. The crowd was great, but we can always use more people. So anybody who wants to send a couple sentences to Daniel, he would love, I believe, Daniel, if that's okay with you, he would need to have it sometime on Thursday. Thursday by what time, Daniel, would you say?
Thursday by the end of the day would be great.
Would be great. Just a couple sentences, anything at all that you feel like saying, so we can entice a few more people to join us. The other thing we've kicked around is the time. I don't want to leave out a group of people. So if you have an opinion on making it a little bit later into the evening, the 7 or 7:30, please let Gilson know, give her some feedback so we make sure that we can keep the community happy, but also bring in as many people as possible. But keep in mind that Daniel has also recorded it. So many people who weren't here today can get the link. Is that right, Daniel? Will they be able to get the link?
I'll share the link with everyone. And actually, just to clarify, Gilson is the one recording it.
Oh, Gilson, thank you for recording, and we can pass that link on.
Yes.
Can that link go on the Shabbat message?
If it is ready in time, then I can include it on the Shabbat message.
Perfect, perfect. Everyone, thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening, and thanks to our wonderful cooks. I really appreciate your doing this. It was awesome.
It was great.
Thank you, cooks, and thank you, Gilson.
Sure. Shana Tova.
Bye.
Tana Tava.
Thank you.